school counselors. My name is Polly. I'm with the College App Roadmap, and I just wanted to give you a brief outline of what a senior year college application timeline might look like for you and your students. First of all, thank you for all the work you do as a school counselor. You are one of the heroes of our society, and I know you are overworked and overburdened and underpaid. So if I can help you in any way to decrease your stress and help your students pursue their dreams, that's the dream. The first thing that I would do with each one of my students is create an organized username and password master document. I would also create a separate email account for them in their application process. So a lot of schools will email them if they need, a transcript or if there's something last minute that they're looking for. So you definitely want to not miss those emails. And I found that a lot of students, their personal emails or their school emails can be a little overloaded, or they don't really check them very often. So we created a separate email account for specifically their college application process and for their scholarships. I usually use Gmail because then I could use the Google suites of like Google Docs, Google Sheets, and all of that. And then creating their logins for the Common App account, the FAFSA account. If they are interested in applying to certain schools that require the CSS account, creating a CSS account, creating all those logins and saving them into that username and password master list. So that was the first thing that I would do with students. And typically when I would have to do that one-on-one with students, it would take a little bit of time because we used Naviance, so had to give them their code, had to make sure that they had access to their emails. A lot of them had a difficult time figuring out what they wanted their password to be. It should be 12 characters, one uppercase, one symbol, and one number. Do not have the students use part of their name as the password because, as we'll see later on, a lot of the portals that they'll have to create for colleges won't allow them to use that. And I've told my students that you should use the same password, username and password, for all of your logins for college applications. That way that just in case you can't remember one of them, and you have it saved in that master document and you can just easily access that. That also made it super easy for me on the back end to check in and to see how they're doing, how's their application progressing, what we needed to work on. You probably won't have time to do that because I definitely didn't have time to do that, but it makes it a little bit easier if you have to. If there's a student who's going through it at home or just not able to show up to meetings, that you can just make sure that they're doing okay and that they're meeting the deadlines that they need to. So creating all your username and passwords, creating all your accounts, that was number one. So hopefully that's done either before fall starts, so they already have that all built up, or in the first couple months of being together. And that was also a thing that the students could definitely do on their own, and I created a little walkthrough guide of it so that my students could do it on their own, so that when I met with them, then I could start doing discernment with them, which was my favorite part. This was time for the student to just really sit in, okay, what is it that I want out of life? And most of them had no idea where to even begin. And that just kind of opening up space for them to think about, okay, so what kind of environment would I want to be in? What city do I want to be in? What kind of professors do I want to be hanging out with? What kind of people do I want to be with? What kind of career do I want to pursue? Who do I want to be in this world? And those kinds of things I think are best done one-on-one, and so I think those would be done with you. I did create a little guide for students to start thinking about these things. I call it Future You. So I can, if you want the little templates for that, I can send that over to you. But I honestly believe that the discernment is, and thinking about their future and thinking about what it is that they want to do, that's one of the most rewarding parts of your job. So definitely so exciting that you get to work with students on that. So the discernment happens, and then part of the discernment is figuring out, okay, based on my grades and on my courses that I've taken, what schools would I be a competitive applicant for? Because schools, one of their primary factors in considering an application are the GPA, but even more than that, the courses that they took and their grades in college prep classes, so in more advanced classes. So if you're a school counselor and you're working with freshmen, sophomore, underclassmen, definitely recommend that if they're interested in applying to a more competitive school, to be sure to be taking those advanced classes, because that's the number one factor that schools look for when considering a college applicant. Once they get there in the fall, ideally you have time to do a one-on-one sit-down session with them and do that discernment process of figuring out, okay, checking in, being like, okay, what kind of schools would be a good fit for you? That discernment process happens September, August time period, and you also just kind of get to check in with them and be like, what's going on at home? How are you feeling? Is everything okay? I'm here for you, so that later in the school year, if something happens, that you're there and they trust you. During your one-on-one sessions, your guidance sessions, you also want to ask your student, okay, who are your letters of recommendation going to be? Because as a school counselor, you're going to write so many letters of recommendation. So I have a little chart that I use to keep track of all my notes when I was filling out letters of recommendation forms, so I can send that over to you too if you would like that. Also, letting them know, okay, you're going to have to ask a coach or a teacher for a letter of recommendation, and then giving them a template, an email template to send it to them, or just making sure that they're asking them so that there's no stress later on for those teachers, and that they can write those letters of recommendation. Also, during your initial one-on-one session, be sure to give them a copy of a transcript that they can use to apply for college's early action. Once they get their applications in, you're going to have to give the schools a updated transcript. But if they have a draft already, then they can go ahead and apply early action to a lot of schools. So they've created their accounts, they have their username and password master list. Then it's time to really go line by line through that common application. And I had to, when I first started out as a school counselor, I was working primarily with first generation low income students. Some of them were undocumented, and a lot of the students had no idea how to even begin to answer these questions. Some of them had family members who were no longer in contact with them, so when they got to the family section, the questions were really difficult. So I created a line-by-line walkthrough of every single question in the Common App to help those students, to make sure, a lot of students don't have any support at home that know how to fill out the forms. And even if they do have support at home, creating some way for them to do it on their own, to do it independently, would give them a little bit more independence and a little bit more self-assurance and self-confidence. So if you need that guide, feel free to reach out to me about that. So the forms are done. We've got the passwords made, we've got the accounts made. Next step is that essay. The Common App essay is probably one of the more difficult components of the application for students. It's the one that they take the longest time on, and the one that they stress out about the most. I would recommend, if you have a relationship with your English teacher at your school, having a draft of an essay be one of the assignments that they have in the first couple of months of the English class, or English or language arts class, because that helped a lot of my students, especially my students who were working full-time while also being a high school student. It allowed them to, get their assignment done and also get their application essay done. And it also allowed them to have their first editor look over the essay and review their essay. So the English teacher would be able to look over the essay and give feedback on the essay. Ideally, again, they've already drafted the essay over the summer or during their junior year. However, if not, then I've also outlined a step-by-step process that they can go through to find editors and to get that essay done. There are also infinite numbers of people that students can pay to help them with their essay, and I found that my more affluent students were able to work with their parents to get that kind of really intense one-on-one feedback on their essays, which is invaluable. However, most students don't have access to that, so we want to make sure that they have a way to do that as well, so I've included that as well. So ideally August, September, we have the forms filled out, we have the essays drafted, we have the username and password masterlist created, and all their accounts created. So that's August, September. Another thing you want to do August, September is create a calendar for your student of all the specific school deadlines that they'll be applying to. So that I just made it in Google Cal with my students, and that really helped them to be like, okay, I have an alert that's going to tell me my application for MIT is coming up, or my application for this one is coming up. And also, I'll get into this later, but scholarships, you can also include those in the calendar. I guess I could talk about scholarships now, actually. So scholarships, ideally, scholarships, the students start applying their freshman year of high school. If you want a guide through how to figure out which scholarships to apply to and how to apply to scholarships, I can send that over to you for free. Just let me know and I'll send that to you. The funny, tricky thing about scholarships is that a majority of them require students to write essays. And so a lot of students are like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't have time to do that. But what's really kind of fun about it is that many of these scholarships have very similar essay prompts. So once students have written, I think probably like 4 or 5 scholarships, once they've applied to 4 or 5 scholarships, they already have a bank of essays that they can repurpose for additional scholarships. And I have tips and tricks about that I can definitely share with you. Just reach out to me. If they start freshman year, they can kind of automate it by the time they're juniors and seniors and be getting those applications in, and also getting aware of like, okay, I can afford this kind of a school. Okay, I've made enough scholarships so I can afford this kind of school. So incorporating that somehow into your school counselor curriculum would be amazing. And again, I know you have no time, but maybe again talking to your English teachers or your language arts teachers and having that be part of the curriculum of having, there are basically 5 essential essays for scholarships, and I can send that to you as well, just let me know. And so having that as a part of the English curriculum could be really, really beneficial for students, especially if they're applying to scholarships. One thing to keep in mind during the college application process is that there will be specific supplemental applications for different schools. So that will mean that certain schools will require that students fill out different forms and write different essays. If they've already been drafting essays for scholarships since their freshman year, then they probably already have a bank of essays that they can use for those supplemental application essays. However, some of the schools, the essays are school specific, so they'll probably have to draft new essays for that. So that will be another intensive time period. Ideally in October, December, or even August and September, they already have drafts of those supplemental essays written. So Common App forms filled out, accounts created, email created, scholarships starting to apply to, essay drafted. Hopefully all of that is done by the student before they get there in the fall. Then October, December type period, that's when typically financial aid applications open. The FAFSA has been really wonky the past couple of years, so we're not 100% sure when it's going to open, but typically the FAFSA and CSS open October 1st. So that's when students should start applying for financial aid. And those applications are incredibly tedious because it's a lot of tax documents, which is not very fun. But again, I created a video walkthrough of those, including like which tax documents to look at. So even if their parent is unable to help them, which I don't know about you, but I've had some students whose parents just are working too much or just don't have the time to help them, that they can walk through it and understand which document to look at and make sure that they're filling it out correctly, and so that they'll get the most aid that they can get. So October, the financial aid application should open, again depending on when FAFSA decides that they want to open. October is also the time where early action and early decision deadlines start. So early action and early decision are a little bit different. So early decision, if you apply to a school early decision and you get accepted to that school, you have to go to that school. So even if you get a better financial aid package or another school is a better fit for you, you still have to go to the school you applied to early decision. So it gives you a little bit of a competitive advantage, but in my honest opinion, I don't think that it gives you enough of a competitive advantage to warrant applying early decision and restricting yourself that way. However, if you have a student who's like end all be all school, the only school they've ever wanted to go to in their whole life, and they know for sure that they're a competitive applicant for that school and that they can financially afford that school, then maybe early decision is a good decision. Otherwise, I would recommend that every student apply to as many schools as possible early action. So early action, there are two different versions of early action. One is restrictive early action, which, like it sounds, is restrictive. So that means that you can only apply to one school early action if you apply restrictive early action, which would limit your chances of getting into other schools. However, it's not binding, so it's not as difficult as dealing with an early decision application. Early action, however, is not restrictive. So you can apply to as many schools as you want early action, and it gives you a less competitive applicant pool. So I tell all my students, why not apply early action? Especially if you already have your applications filled out, you already have your forms filled out, why not apply early action? So those deadlines are typically in October. Most of the Ivy League schools and the more competitive schools, November 1st is typically that early action deadline. But again, check school specific deadlines because you don't want to miss those deadlines. Okay, so November, December, we're now in winter time. And this is the time where either a student has already gotten their applications in and it's just a matter of waiting for decisions to come back, or they are just now starting their applications and they're coming to you being like, I didn't know I have to get this in. I'm so stressed out. Please help me. So for those students, again, I have a step-by-step guide you can give them so that they can get those forms filled out. Ideally, not all of them are acting that way and that they've gotten it squared off, but sometimes students, have a health issue or have been working a lot, so they haven't been able to get to applications that they need to. So we have a bingeable step-by-step guide through the Common App to help them get that done. December, January, that time period is when regular decisions typically are. So at this point, you want to make sure that your students have all of their college applications in. If they're applying to rolling admission is students can apply at any time within a certain applicant period, and then they can also get their admissions decision within that time more quickly, so they can find out, okay, this school, I'm going to get accepted to this school, that's very exciting. So rolling admission is a separate story. That could be later, that could be earlier. But regular decision is typically January 1st or December, January time period. Okay, so January, we've come to January. All of your students have all of their applications in. There might be a few rolling admissions they're still working on, but all of the applications are in. We're not done yet. Once a student submits an application, they'll have to create a school-specific portal. So this is their admissions portal where they'll see if they've gotten accepted or what the feedback is from that school, and they'll also be able to track and see which documents the school still needs. So I have a Excel spreadsheet that I've been using to track that and make sure that students have everything in on time. And if you need that, I can send you the link to get that. And that's really something that a lot of students don't do because they're like, oh, I submitted, I'm done, I don't have to worry about anything. But actually you have to create the student portal and so track to see what your feedback is and what documents they still need. During February and March, the student will want to keep checking their portals, seeing if there's anything else the school needs. Once they get their college decision, usually within a week or two, the school will also send them a financial aid award package. And that's just a document that has a list of all the awards that they're getting and typically how much an estimated tuition and fees are. Sometimes students will have to add additional fees if they're, traveling, if they're flying, or if they need specific accommodations or anything like that. So be sure to keep that in mind when calculating the cost of the school. So I had a few students who had no home support whatsoever, and so really needed to walk through, okay, what is it going to cost for you each month if you are on a payment plan. Schools do offer payment plans, so if students want to break up how much they're going to be able to afford by month, you can do that as well. I have a cost calculator that can help you do that. But this time period, it's really exciting because students are getting their, accepted, waitlisted, denied, all of those decisions are coming through. But there's also like, you got accepted, yes, but let's wait a little bit and see the financial aid award package to make sure that you can afford going to that school. So once they've gotten all their decisions and they've gotten all their financial aid award package, then you can sit down with them and really check each school against each other to see which one would be the best fit for them. So you're looking at finances, you're looking at resources, you're looking at networking opportunities, you're looking at graduation rates, long-term income rates of different schools. And I have a spreadsheet that has all that data for each school, so if you're interested in that, let me know. If a student got accepted to a school that they're super excited about, but then they got a financial aid award letter that didn't quite meet what they need, you can always submit a financial aid award appeal letter. Those are hit or miss. Some students that I've worked with who really, really deserved it didn't get a changed award letter. Some students that we just submitted a last minute award appeal letter, they got like a full ride. So I would still submit it no matter what, because you never know what's going to happen. So I have some drafts for that as well if you would like a draft of what you can write for the appeal letter. Essentially, in the financial aid award appeal letter, you'll want to say why the student is so excited to attend that specific school, make it as personalized as possible, and also why it is that they're not able to afford that amount. If they've gotten accepted to other schools and have better financial aid packages, you can also include that. I'm not 100% sure if that's helpful. Because half the students that we included that in got financial aid award appeals approved, but then some didn't, and there's a part of me that's like, ooh, did they not like that? So I need to do more research on that. If you have information about that, if you have like data on the appeal letters that you've done for the awards, let me know, because I would like more information on that. So students have gotten their college decisions, they've gotten their financial aid award letters, they have checked each school against each other, and they've made a decision about what school they want to go to. Now's the time for them to accept their admission. If a student does not accept their admission, typically by April, May, then they'll lose their place in that class, which some students just are like, oh, I got accepted, I don't have to worry anymore. You have to accept it. So you go on the portal, typically it's on the portal, and there's a little spot where you can accept the admissions offer. Once they get the admissions offer, once they accept that, it's not over yet. It's still going on. Once they accept the admissions offer and they've chosen which school they want to go to and they're super excited, then they have to create an admitted students portal. So there'll be an email that they'll get on how to create their admitted students portal, and then on the admitted students portal, they'll have to upload their vaccination history, their health history. They'll have to if they're taking out loans, then they'll have to sign a master promissory note, they'll have to do loan counseling, and they'll have to do their housing application, and every school has their unique things that they have students apply, but you definitely want the student to fill those out before they get to college, because once they get there in the fall, if they haven't submitted their health history, if they haven't filled out their housing application, then they might get to school and not have a dorm room. They might not have somewhere to live. They might not be able to go to classes because they haven't submitted their vaccination history. So you definitely want to make sure that they're filling those out before they get to college. Typically, they have a deadline for all of those forms to fill out, but that's a huge part that I think a lot of students miss, because they're like, oh, I got accepted, I did all the work, and it's still happening. So once they have all of the assignments in their admitted students portal, it's probably about the time for graduation, so you'll say goodbye to them. But if they have it done before, the next step that they can do is they can start researching professors and researching classes that they'd be interested to take, as well as student groups that they'd want to join. So once they're accepted to a school, it's really excited because they can start, imagining themselves on that campus and start planning out, okay, who are the different student groups that I want to connect to? What are the different classes that I definitely want to take? Ideally, you have so much you're doing, right? Obviously, but ideally at some point you either have a guest speaker come and talk to your students, or you yourself talk to your students about what to expect at college, because a lot of students don't know to go to office hours, to talk to their advisor. If their advisor's not good, what to do, what resources are available to them, why internships are so important. There's so much that students, when they get to college campus, they just don't realize is important while they're there for those 4 years. So ideally, finding someone to come and give a presentation to your graduating class, or if you wanted to create that presentation, reach out to me and I can help you figure that out. We haven't really talked about loans yet. So loans are a huge part of nearly every single student's experience with higher education. Ideally, they've been applying to scholarships and they have enough money to cover the cost of tuition, but tuition in the United States is wild. It is so expensive. It's like driving a brand new car off a cliff every year. So a lot of students take out loans. This will be over most students' heads. I've had some students come through who, have been working since they are 13 and they already know about loans and they already know about all this. So they pretty much are like, I understand this. They take the loan counseling and the master promissory note and they're all fine. I also have students who are incredibly stressed out and are triggered. Their anxiety or their stress is triggered by finances. And so those students, hand-holding through the loan discussion process and really walking them through, okay, this is how you pay off a loan, the difference between subsidized and unsubsidized loans, the Parent Plus loan, what does that mean? And then private loans, why those can be kind of predatory sometimes. That's a huge component of the college application and the higher education experience in the United States. Unfortunately, you don't have time to talk to them about that. But again, if you have someone come in to talk them through who's an expert in that, that could be helpful. Okay, so we're doing graduation time. You're saying goodbye. You love them. It's wonderful. At this point, congratulate yourself. You did it. You made it through a year. You helped all of your students get to where they want to be. And even if they're not where they want to be, you helped them self-actualize in a new way. And it's an amazing feat that you've done. Just being present for students at that age, just them having someone that they can go to is enough. And you have killed it. And I'm so proud of you. What I would do during the summer when, I was taking a break, rested a little bit, then I would kind of look back over the senior class and I have a spreadsheet where I track, okay, what kind of GPAs got into which schools were less competitive, which schools got all the students in, which schools gave the best aid, so that for the next upcoming class, I could go and be like, okay, this school is going to be a great school for you. You have the GPAs that would be great. You have, and they'll give you a good financial aid. So that's one thing to track what's going on each year and what the admissions percentages were. So now you're at the summer. You can rest a little bit. And then it starts again in the fall. So I'll make another video about what to do with juniors to prepare them for the senior year so that it's less stressful for you and for them. And then I think I'll probably make a video for freshman and sophomore year students. But if there's another topic or if there's something else that I didn't cover in detail or if there's something that was a little bit more confusing, just let me know. I would love to help you guys. Literally, this is like a calling of mine to help decrease barriers to higher education for all students. So I would love to talk with you. Reach out to me. All the contact stuff is below. And thank you again for all the amazing work you do for your students and for our world. And if you're a student or if you're a parent watching this, happy applications. I hope you enjoy this process. And it does not have to be stressful. It can be a process of self-actualization and getting to know your interests and what your dreams are. So I would love to talk to you about your dreams. If you want to talk about them, just reach out. And yeah, may all students, no matter their background, have access to higher education. So go team! You've got this.